Hey, everybody, welcome to the WagerTalk College Football Podcast. Big weekend. Guys, I can't wait to talk about these games because, man, the college football rankings updated this past Tuesday, and it seems like every team with the chance to be in the Final Four at the end of the season has a big matchup going this weekend. We're going to break down a few of them in just a little bit, but as always, we're going to start things off by jumping behind the counter with Matthew Holt. He is VP of Business Development at CGT Sportsbooks in Las Vegas. And, Matt, we're going to throw them at you, set them up, you knock them down, and I want to start with Friday Night Football in the Pac-12 with Washington at Stanford. And, this Cardinal offense simply ugly last week in that 3-point loss to Wazoo. The Cardinal gained, guys, 198 total yards of offense. Costello was way off his game. Bryce Love was ineffective. If they can't get up, though, for a little bit of a revenge opportunity here, remember they were blown out 44-6 last year. I don't know what will draw this team's interest.
It is helping the betting, certainly, that Bryce Love is probable going into the game. What we've seen with Stanford the last few weeks is the whole betting market around Stanford games on hold, waiting to see if Bryce Love is or is not playing. We saw the massive line collapse against Oregon State in the Friday Nighter when he was announced out. We saw people waiting with bated breath last week. And look, if you wonder how good Bryce Love is or how much he's actually worth to this game, just look no further than last week. Washington State a 1.5-point favorite. Bryce Love gets announced probable. Stanford a 2.5-point favorite. So Bryce Love, you could easily say, is minimal worth 4 points to the betting line. It has certainly helped that he's been in all week. We're seeing some two-way action here, although the public has started to get off Stanford now, and they're on the Washington Huskies.
Next game up, Matt, we're going to take a look at Michigan State and Ohio State. And one of the phrases I always like to use at this time of the year, and now everybody likes to use it, dream crusher. You got Ohio State, 2 losses now on the season, lose last week after their big game against Penn State 2 weeks ago. They went into Iowa. And, for them to lose, I wasn't surprised to see the Doll effort, but to get drilled the way they did, do they bounce back at the shoe?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I just did a podcast earlier this week with someone that told me he trademarked the term dream catcher, so you better be careful, Marco.
Yeah, that's why I said it, because I heard him use it.
I'm glad I didn't listen to that show.
But, yeah, look, the public has gotten off Ohio State for the first time all year, and this is the first scenario that we're seeing where the public is anti-Ohio State here. Look, they looked really bad last week in a big spot. Look, they could still go to the Big Ten championship game. In fact, the winner of this game is all but assured to go to the Big Ten championship game. But at this point, I'm just not sure, and the public isn't sure that they want to back Ohio State in this spot. Public money all over Michigan State for a change. Sharp split.
TCU and Oklahoma is a big game because, they're both in the playoff hunt. The loser is out. So it's a huge game. The money's been showing so far. Look, the meaningful money, it would appear, on the Horned Frogs.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, this is another one we talk about this week after week, that all 1-point line moves are not created equal. This one opened 7.5 down to 6.5. And in order to drive a game that big off the key number of 7, that's not only big action, but it's action from the right kind of people that actually put some fear into the books. That's been the case here as the Sharps heavily leaning toward the Horned Frogs here at TCU. Public actually split on this game too. Look, there seems to be a lot of public dissent or unappreciation for the Oklahoma defense this year, and maybe for good reason. But I'm wondering at this point if it's a little bit too much love for the Horned Frogs.
Well, here is a dream crusher. Notre Dame and Miami renewed their rivalry this week in Miami, and the loser of this game is obviously in trouble when it comes to the football playoff standings. The Irish are going to have to deal with some bumps and bruises. Wimbush probable. He's got the hand injury. Running back Josh Adams expected to play after suffering a head injury. I got to admit, Matt, I know that Virginia Tech turned the ball over 4 times. I had a 6-2 week last week. One of my losses was Virginia Tech. And I do have to admit, even though they had the 4 turnovers, I did have Miami a tad lower valued than I should have. They looked pretty good. They withstood a tough spot. 4 straight close battles, still got through, took care of business. How's the betting handle between the Irish and the Canes?
It really split right now. And a lot of people have told me, interestingly enough, hey, this Notre Dame number seems too low. It seems too low, yet we're not seeing an overwhelming of support for the Irish here. Last week, we saw all the early action on Virginia Tech, right? Even though everyone that you talk to that makes strong power ratings say Miami in this situation should probably be the favorite on the power ratings. Maybe one, or pick them, but slight favorite. But the power rating said Miami should have been the favorite in that game on that spot. And at the end of the day, that's where they ended up because all the money late came in on Miami. This is a situation now with Miami off the big win. It gives people more reinforcement who bet them last week to jump back on this week against Notre Dame. Look, the Notre Dame support bandwagon hasn't slowed down all year, but Miami hasn't really slowed down either. And this one, I think, is going to be the most handled game of the day.
No dream crusher here, but the dream is still alive for Alabama as they roll in to play Mississippi State. No question, Mississippi State last week looking ahead to play Bama with their just go through the motions game last week against UMass. Can they stay with Alabama the way LSU did?
You know what, interestingly enough here, and this has sort of been a phenomenon throughout the year, the public likes Mississippi State, period. They bet them every single week. The Sharps only like Mississippi State at home. The Sharps are on this game because they like Mississippi State only when they're at home, and that's been a profitable situation this year. The public seems to like Mississippi State anyway, anytime they're catching a bunch of points. This line's down to 14. This line looked like a number that would probably shoot to 17, but instead has gone to 14. Be interesting to see kickoff where this number's at.
If Wisconsin runs the table and wins the Big Ten title, they'll be in the playoff. I don't want to hear this nonsense about, well, they're number 8 and they've got to get a lot of help. If they win all the rest of their games, they'll be in. Nevertheless, this is kind of a no-respect deal for the Badgers right now. They might be looking to get some style points against an Iowa team fresh off a tremendous, but maybe a perfect game against Ohio State.
Look, you always want to bet against the team coming off their greatest performance of the season, especially when they were an underdog, and cover the spread by a historic number. That was the case with the Iowa Hawkeyes last week, and the public all over Iowa this week. Although the Sharps normally in this situation will probably go ahead and lay that number with Wisconsin just for the reason Dave just mentioned, that Wisconsin injury report probably causing a little bit of pause with the Sharps right now, and we're pretty heavy one-sided to the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Georgia and Auburn doing battle. I can't wait to watch this matchup. First home game, by the way, in 35 days for the Auburn Tigers. They have a shot to knock off number 1. The defense has been spectacular. The offense, it's grown and matured since the early season loss to Clemson. Georgia doesn't have a passing game, guys. That's the only fault I can find with this football team. The defense is ridiculously strong. They did beat Notre Dame. Have the Bulldogs... I don't know, man. I look at that and I think they really haven't beaten anybody other than Notre Dame. It is a huge feather in their cap. I get this point spread, though, and I don't think I can jump on the Auburn Tigers here. And originally, when I was making my own line for this game, Matt, before last week's games were played, I thought I'm going to be on Auburn here if everything works out right going into this game, but I'm having a hard time pulling the trigger on that one.
Look, the offensive line injury is certainly a concern here for the Auburn Tigers, especially if they're going to be able to run the football against this really strong, really physical Georgia Bulldogs defensive line. Look, this looks like a game where you should get great two-way action. Auburn at home, Jared Stidham finally playing up to his potential, a really good athletic defense on Auburn's side, an amazing run so far for Georgia, yet we are getting one-sided action over the counter and on account on the Georgia Bulldogs thus far. Look, still plenty of time to go, and we haven't seen any bets over 40K yet, so we haven't seen any monster bets on this game. But all the bets so far right now, all the bigger bets, that 4 figures and more, are all on Georgia.
Beginning of the season, Matt, Florida State, Clemson looked like was going to be a big game late in the season, jockeying for position, but Florida State opened the season number 2 in the country. And basically their dream was done the first week of October when they lost to Miami. Do they get up for pride against Clemson, or can this offense have no shot against this Clemson defense?
Finally, here we go. Pros versus Joes in this scenario. The public is all over the Clemson Tigers in this spot, and why not? Florida State has been terrible. Maybe no team in the nation has even come close to underwhelming expectations than the Florida State Seminoles this season. Clemson here fighting for a playoff berth. That always brings extra public action into the fray. But on the other side of the ball, the Sharps actually like Florida State here. Maybe it's the fact that, look, this is the biggest game remaining this season for Florida State, and you expect to get a good effort, and you expect their young freshman quarterback at this point, with all the reps he's gotten, to continue to get at least a little bit better every single week. Sharps on Florida State, public all over Clemson Tigers.
And that is the voice of Matthew Holt, VP of Business Development, CGT Sportsbooks in Las Vegas. When we come back, we're going to jump to the other side of the counter. We're going to talk about some major clashes going on this weekend in college football. We'll break down Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama, Mississippi State, Georgia, Auburn. That's just 3 of the 4. We'll also talk a little TCU, Oklahoma out of the Big 12. That and more still to come. Stick around. We are Wager Talk College Football.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Wager Talk College Football. Don't forget to check out our NFL podcast also on the website this weekend. We're going to jump into 4 huge games this week in college football. There's a bunch of them this week, a great lineup and slate of games for college football on Saturday. Let's start out in the Big 12. The loser of this game is out of the playoff race. The Sooners, a 6.5-point favorite to TCU. The action on TCU took this down from 7.5 down to 6.5. That's a big jump. Total 62 at last check. And let's start with you, Marco D'Angelo. How does this one set up for you? The Horned Frogs and the Sooners. And by the way, I heard there's a rumor going around that defense is illegal in the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the keys to this game. But, you look at Oklahoma, and guys, I have horses. And we have a phrase in horse racing. It's called bounce. A horse will bounce. And what that means is after such a big effort, the horse comes back in the next effort, and they're dull. Well, I'll tell you what, Oklahoma, they were thoroughbreds last week going up and down the field. They are ripe for a bounce this week because you're talking about 20-year-old kids. I mean, that was an epic game, up and down the field, both teams. Now they're going to come in after such a high, have to get themselves focused for this week against TCU, and they're playing a team that's a totally different style of football than what they played last week. TCU is one of the only teams in the Big 12 that actually does play defense, and they can frustrate you at times. I like TCU here. I like them plus the points. I'm not sure they can't go in there and win this game outright, coming off the situation of when they're catching Oklahoma, but I'm gobbling up the points with the Horned Frogs.
It says only 1 point to the general public, Matt, but when it goes from 7.5 to 6.5, as we've talked about before, that's a significant move, obviously.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised here. I thought that they were going to get a little more love off that game, and I get the bounce effect, and I get the lack of defense showed this year by the Oklahoma Sooners football team. But Baker Mayfield is suddenly the clear Heisman frontrunner, the minus money clear favorite to win the Heisman. He threw for almost 600 yards last week. Normally, often a performance that's so impressive, you can't help but be impressed, but want to go to the window and bet that. I'll be honest with you, at less than a touchdown now, I am not going to bet TCU at 7. Maybe I would have considered it. Maybe you could have talked me into that side at 6.5. I think, look, Baker Mayfield's trying to win a Heisman. Oklahoma's problem isn't winning big games. It's beating the teams that they're favored by 30 over. So, look, I don't mind laying 6.5 in this spot. Could it be a dull effort? Absolutely. Is TCU the better defensive team? Absolutely. But Kenny Hill's play, you talk about how inconsistent the Oklahoma team's been. Kenny Hill's ability to throw the football accurately, just as inconsistent this season.
The Catholics and the Convicts renew their rivalry. Allowed to say that? Did anybody trademark the Catholics and the Convicts? But Notre Dame's a 3-point favorite at Miami. And again, like the previous game, Dave Cokin, losers out. Maybe I had Miami slightly undervalued last week, as I mentioned in our opening segment, but it's a situation where they still held Virginia Tech to less than 300 yards. They outgained them heavily, and they looked like the right side. Even though you had the turnovers, it still looked like the right side.
No, Miami they deserved to win that game. They were the better team. And this is great now because when's the last time we had a game this meaningful between these two great old rivals? I mean, this is fun. I don't have a strong opinion of the game, but I can tell you this. You've got to find a way to at least contain. You're not going to stop Notre Dame's running game. Not going to happen. But you've got to find a way to contain it because otherwise they just start churning down the field. First down, first down, first down. They're going to wear you down. Notre Dame is boy, I'm telling they might be the most physical team in the country. They are just monsters on the front line. Remember when Brian Kelly was on the hot seat? Boy, I guess you can forget about that. I think they're better than Miami. But I'm telling you what, Miami's just on one of those rolls right now, and I don't like getting in the way of a team on a roll. If Notre Dame beats Miami here, I think you'll be looking to bet against Miami the next week. This could be a legit dream crusher
because
if
of
it
all
happens.
those close calls that they've been able to escape, almost like they're living on borrowed time.
Well, and the thing is that I still don't have them anywhere near
where they're ranked.
I don't think they're sniffing a top 4 playoff spot. But that dream is alive right now. And if they win this game, they've got a really good chance to make that case. Hey, nobody beat us. Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
and if they win this game, that means they'll have beaten Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, and they'll still have to beat Clemson.
And then, in which case they can say to people like me, up yours, buddy. We keep on winning these games. We're really good. You're the one who's an idiot. And maybe I am.
Marco, it's okay.
That's all right.
Go ahead and say it to him.
You're an idiot.
No, there are teams that I get completely wrong. And I got to tell you, here's the cool part for me. I haven't been betting against them.
Yeah, I did
For
last
some
week.
reason,
First time
I've
I did
stayed
was
out of their
week.
games, so I haven't gotten stung, but I've completely underrated the squad.
You know what
There's no
stunk
question
on
about
ice
that.
last week is I'm in a place and I'm watching the games and there's TVs everywhere and I look up and the first touchdown I see a black uniform running down the field and scoring a touchdown. I'm like, yeah, I got Virginia Tech. At the time, I'm 6-0 for the week. Lost the last two games, but 6-0 going to that game. And I see him running across the goal line. I'm like, yeah. Then I look up and I see Miami. Oh, they got the wrong team scoring. I didn't realize they had the black unis on. It was only at the game. I was watching another game at the time.
Between the uniforms and the helmets, every week changing, I walk into a sports book and there's 10 games on TV. I cannot. It takes me a while to figure out what game's what and who's who.
Still not as bad as when you're flipping around watching baseball games and you see a home run for your team and then discover a few seconds later it's a replay from the second inning. It's like, what just happened here?
Matt, your thoughts on the Irish and the Canes?
This is a classic power versus speed matchup to me. Notre Dame with that power running game. Miami's defense not as big, not as strong maybe as Notre Dame is on the offensive line, but that defensive line and those linebackers for Miami are ball hawkers who might be the fastest, most athletic defensive line / linebacking core in the entire nation. Now, what's going to win out this week? Power versus speed. We have seen the Miami offense struggle since Mark Walton went down, but they do enough to win football games. And I guarantee you, athlete for athlete, if you went on the field position by position and just said, who has the better athletes in this game? It's the Miami Hurricanes.
You look at this one, and I agree with you about the Miami team speed and the way they have the takeaways. They have 12 takeaways in the last 3 ball games, and they needed that in 2 of those games because they just got by. They manhandled Virginia Tech last week. Kudos to Miami. They made the believer out of me last week because I agree with you. I thought Virginia Tech was the side last week in that one. But here's the thing. Notre Dame doesn't turn the football over. Notre Dame runs the football down your throat, and Miami cannot stop the run. Notre Dame, 2 turnovers in the last 6 games. So that's going to negate one of those big edges that Miami has had in the last few weeks. And let's talk about that physicality of Notre Dame. We haven't seen this out of the Irish in a long time. And they're going to run the football probably 50-plus times in this game. And you look the last few games, last week, even though they took care of business against Virginia Tech is a hard-hitting defense. That was a physical game that they were in. And now they're going to have to come back and play a more physical game against Notre Dame that is just going to keep pounding it and pounding it. I think this is an old-fashioned game where Notre Dame wears them down, controls the line of scrimmage, and if you're not have to throw the football, you're not going to get those turnovers off this Notre Dame team. I like Notre Dame roll big in this one. I think Miami gets exposed.
You know what? I just got through a football season with my son, Matty Jr., that ended in sort of dramatic fashion, but they did lose the last game dramatically. But one of the things I noticed throughout that season and watching all the games I did again is the reminder that power doesn't always beat speed. And some of the smallest teams we faced that were just so lightning fast on both sides of the ball gave us the most trouble because we had one of the bigger teams in the league. Look, this Miami team is fast, and that's the one thing that people underrate every week because their quarterback isn't great. They don't have a great downfield passing game. They're missing Walton in the offense, but they are so fast on both sides of the ball.
You know what I was impressed with most about that game is there was a point of the game where Vatech pulled within 14-10 after looking like they were going to get blown off the field, and Miami didn't waver. They scored the final 2 touchdowns of the game, and they go on to the victory. Thought that was very impressive with Vatech. When you're blowing a team out or looking like you're going to blow a team out, next thing you know, it's a 4-point game. You can get a little edgy and a little itchy there if you're that team with a lead.
And it's going to be a night game with a rocking crowd.
Oh, definitely. Over-under, guys, on how many times they're going to put up pictures of Lou Holtz and Jimmy Johnson throwbacks from whenever this was a big, big series.
Oh, my gosh. It's gonna
Probably
be crazy.
more times than touchdowns scored in the game.
I wouldn't doubt it. Alabama's at Mississippi State, big SEC battle, big national battle, especially for the Tide, laying a couple of touchdowns in this one. Injuries have been mounting for the Tide, especially on defense, guys. Both defenses have been sound outside of those injuries. Neither team really has a passing game worth a whole lot, especially Miss State, by the way. But, Matt, even at 14 or 14 and a half, boy, it just seems like it's too tough to take. But I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to be shocked on some of the guys that I know and respect that are going to take these points because of the injuries to the linebacker position, for instance, for example, for Alabama. I just can't back Miss State. I look at who they've played, and it just takes me off of them here. Maybe something's wrong with the Alabama passing game. Maybe there's something wrong with Hurts at quarterback. But the bottom line is I think they find a way to win this one by about 17 to 20 points.
Look, there was a really, really long-standing sort of betting trend in the NFL that says you always bet against Baltimore and Pittsburgh coming off that game because they're just so physical the way they smash into each other. And the same holds true in college football for Alabama and LSU. Those teams just line up and smash each other for 60 minutes every single year. And that's the same thing in college football. You always bet against LSU and Alabama the week after they play each other because it's such a physical game. The problem is Mississippi State has sort of been an enigma this year. They came in with somewhat high expectations, actually, for Mississippi State, and those expectations skyrocketed after a 30-point home blowout win over LSU. But since then, we have seen a Mississippi State team that's enjoyed very high highs and some very low lows this season. You're not always sure what Nick's going to do at quarterback, and I love Dan Mullins. I love the job he's there, but this team's too inconsistent for me to plot my money down.
Yeah, although the real inconsistencies to me have come on the road. And at home, I mean, they're going to be nuts down there with those cowbells going crazy, and the crowd's going to be, it's Stark Vegas, man.
Yeah.
They get excited down there. It's a tough home field. And Alabama's coming off a real big rivalry game. I mean, LSU's still a big rivalry. Saban's about as good as it gets in terms of getting his team to avoid pitfalls like that. And I don't think they're going to get beat here. But I wouldn't be surprised if Mississippi State gives them a game. I don't bet against Alabama. I just basically don't. Yeah. Even last week, I liked LSU and decided, no, I'm just not going to do it. And the weird thing is, there's often value in going against in Alabama because the perception is so strong on them.
It's like the Patriots.
And I still don't. And I don't want to like going against them either.
Sure.
You know why? Because they can blow up systems and value and all that stuff. And I'll just stay out of it. I got a lot of games I like on Saturday. I like this one a little, but not enough to bet.
I agree with you. I just can't pull the trigger against Alabama in a regular season game, Marco.
Yeah, the thing is with this game here, I think you're getting a little bit of value because they didn't cover that big number last week, Alabama. And you look at a Mississippi State team that the last 4 games, they've scored 34 or more points, 4 straight games. So they're getting, a lot of points here at home. The key to Mississippi State is if they can't run the football, they're in trouble. Their whole offense centers around the running game working, and they're going against the number 2 rushing defense in the country at 2.5 yards per carry.
They do have a better throwing quarterback than they've had in a while.
They do, but
Nick can throw the ball down the field.
He can throw it, but if the running game's not going and they got to get in those 3rd and 7s and stuff,
any quarterback 3rd and long against Alabama is a bad situation.
That's the situation that troubles me. That's why I would lean to Alabama if I had to play this game. The one thing, though, Fitzgerald can run the football. We've seen in the past that teams that have a mobile quarterback has given Alabama some problems in the past. So they got that working for him. But you got to give a big pat on the back to Alabama's AD. Did you see who they play next week before the Auburn game?
It's the SEC second to last game.
How do you get Mercer on your schedule in late November?
About $5 million, that's how. But you do that in the SEC. I mean, it happens over and over. Auburn,
every
Alabama,
year.
All those teams.
Every
the
year.
Second to last regular season game on the schedule is always a Mercer or something like that.
God bless them.
And
Tennessee
nobody
wants a
says
rematch
a word.
What's that?
And no one says a
That's
word.
the thing. Yeah, exactly.
Washington plays a mean, Wisconsin plays BYU, who everyone thought was going to be okay, and everyone's like,
Who'd they play?
ooh.
Yeah.
Alabama plays Mercer. They're like, that's cool. They play in the SEC. Really? I mean, really? Okay, I guess. Fine.
Speaking of the SEC, that game we mentioned in the opening segment, talking about the betting aspect of it from behind the counter. How about in the other side of the counter, Mark? We'll start with you. Georgia at Auburn. I mentioned it's been about a year and a half since Auburn's played on their home turf. How much do you factor into we all talked about when Georgia was going into the game against the Irish, against Notre Dame, and they won that game, that having Jacob Fromm was going to make it tough early on for opponents to prepare defensively for him because he was a different quarterback than the guy he replaced. He can move. He can run with the football. But if Auburn is able to stop the ground game and keep him in check, it's not much of a passing game for Georgia. What do you think about this contest?
Well, that's the whole thing, is he has not had to have a game yet where he has had to take the team on his back and throw the football. They have a great defense. They've got a great running game, and they've not been pressed in any of the games. The closest game they had was the Notre Dame game, second game of the season, and they got it done with the defense. They escaped 20-19. But if they find themselves in a tie game or behind, we don't know how he's going to react, and I'm looking at this Auburn team, and with the exception of the second half, which I think you got to blame on the coaching, they had LSU down, and they didn't go for the knockout punch, and they let LSU hang around, and LSU rallied and won that game. And then the beginning of the season, the first game of the season, playing Clemson, they didn't, they lost the game, but it wasn't, a bad loss. I mean, what was it, 14-6 or something in that game? Yep. So, that was, at the time, was the, best game for anybody against Clemson for the first 6 games of the season. I like Auburn here. A lot of sharps were high on them early in the season coming into this one. They thought they were the team that would pull the upset if anybody was going to dethrone Alabama this year. A lot of people thought Georgia was improved, but nobody thought Georgia was going to be as good as they've played thus far. And like I said, until Fromm shows me that he can go in and complete those long third down plays and have to make those plays, I just can't lay the points on the road here. I'll take the home dog.
I can't blame you for that. These are the games I want to watch on Saturday, not necessarily the ones I want to bet on. I just love what Kirby Smart's doing with this team. He just seems cool, calm, and collected. They lose the quarterback. They plug in another guy. He's fine. He hasn't played that well lately, but
you know what I like,
the
Dave,
defense
real quickly? Just to jump. I just got to jump in for 1 second. What I liked about Kirby Smart, first of all, last year I thought this was the hire of the year for Georgia. It took him a year to get it together and get what he wanted implemented onto this team. What I like about Kirby Smart, when he brought in a new quarterback who's a different style than the quarterback he had planned to use, he didn't do the square peg in a round hole. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, he was like, I'm going to let this guy do his thing. He doesn't have to play the kind of offense we were going to. That's not his skill set. I love it when a coach is flexible.
Yep. I have a tendency in games like this to go with the better defense. That's just my way. And Georgia has the better defense, so I would lean that way. But it's clearly not an upset if Auburn beats them. I mean, they'll say it is on national TV. Oh, shocking! It's not shocking at all. To me, the game's pretty much a toss-up. I'm leaning toward the side with the better defense, but it's going to come down to turnovers. That's what's going to happen. Whoever doesn't make the crucial mistake and is going to win this, whoever does make the crucial mistake, puts the ball on the floor, and gives up a defensive score, that's the team that's going to lose.
Matt?
Normally in the NFL, we always talk about you can't win if you're one-dimensional, and it's pretty much true. You can't win if you're one-dimensional in the NFL, but in college you can. Army has won 3 games this year, and they're 7-2, and 3 of those wins come in games they didn't even complete a pass in.
I don't think they threw a pass last week.
Didn't have to throw a pass.
No. Yeah. Well, he's the worst passer I've ever seen in college football.
All right, that was my best bet on the show, Army +6 last week. They didn't throw a pass, and they won easy as an underdog. They didn't just cover. They didn't just win. They romped in that game. So you can do that in college football, and I don't want to bet against that offensive line and that running back combination of Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb. Those guys are unbelievable. That offensive line is so good. They just keep the ball away from you. You talk about Notre Dame pounding you. Georgia really pounds you with 2 unbelievable backs who could take it to the house on any play, and when they don't, they run you over. That's a tough team to beat. I get all the Auburn backers. I don't fault anyone. Gun to my head, I'm on the Bulldogs.
Gus Malzahn, by the way, feeling a little bit of heat right now with that Auburn program from some of the of the fans. College basketball, it starts on Friday. There's about 3,000 games. None of us are going to get any sleep after we do the podcast tonight. We've already done a lot of handicapping, but guess what? Matt's got to be there watching the lines, moving the lines to bettors. Marco, Dave, and I are all going to be sitting there trying to beat some of those spreads. So, guys, we'll probably be up until dawn, maybe a little bit later on Friday. We're going to break down 4 games. We're going to, not 4 games, but 4 teams. We're each going to have a futures play coming up in this next segment. We'll get one from Matt, one from Marco, one from Dave, one from me. That's coming up next, followed by best bets in college football. Stick around.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
Welcome back to Wager Talk College Football version. Don't forget to check out the NFL podcast also this weekend. We're going to take a break for just a second, just a minute from college football. We'll have our college football best bets coming up after the final break of the show. But college basketball tips off on Friday with a multitude of games, both regular board games, added board games, and every point in between. There's no sneaking up on people and into the season anymore with college basketball. They fire away with a bunch of games right off the bat. So, guys, what we're going to do with about 6 dozen games on the slate and still time as we cut this podcast to handicap some of those games, instead of talking about particular games, let's talk about some of these teams that we feel has a chance, at least for hedgeability reasons, when it comes to March Madness. And Dave Cokin, let's start with you. Your futures college basketball play that you like best this season.
Well, I know I'm going to take the craziest long shot of all. Now, should I? Yeah, let's. What the heck? Why not? I don't think they're going to win the championship. Okay, but if they can, they should get. I think they're going to get to the tournament. And if I can get to the tournament with a 400-1 from a major conference, I'm already a winner at that point. Basically, can't lose at that point. Chris Beard. Maybe we don't need him out here after all, because Menzies is doing a great job and got some good recruits in. But Chris Beard, when he got hired by UNLV for that 1 week he was here, was like, holy crap, what a score this is for UNLV. He did a phenomenal job at Little Rock, and I'm going to tell you, he's going to win big at Texas Tech. Some of that conference isn't as strong as it's been either this year. So Texas Tech has a chance to move up a little more. I really think 2 teams in that conference that are going to make the tournament this year, Texas Tech and TCU. Yeah. TCU they've been a football school forever. They got themselves a real basketball team this year. But at 400-1, I think Texas Tech's worth throw $10 on it. And for guys just a recreational bet. Because even if you just get to the tournament, you'll make a $50-$60 profit. Now, you can multiply that out if you bet 100 on it or 1,000 on it. Obviously, you can make a lot more. But that's just for casual players who might be listening. At 400-1, they're worth a shot, not to win the tournament, but just to get in. And if they get to the Sweet 16, you're gold.
400-1 from Dave Cokin, Texas Tech Red Raiders. Matt, who's your futures play?
So I sent out a few. They were, Xavier and Texas A&M, who's got a couple guys suspended for a few games. Xavier, who their best player, Trayvon Blewett's a little blinged up, but they're going to be awesome. But I'm going to go with a bomber, too, because Dave started with bombers, and now I want a bomber.
All right.
So I'm going to go with one of mine, too, 200-1, the Providence Flyers here. Only a handful of teams.
No, wait. The
That's
Providence Friars or the Dayton Flyers?
The Providence Friars.
Yeah, I guarantee you he's not going with the Dayton Flyers
No,
this
he's
year.
not.
Not this year. No, the Friars are they're loaded.
Look, and Ed Cooley, unbelievable job he does there. They're one of only a handful of teams to actually make the tournament 4 consecutive years. And who hasn't? Florida and Indiana and all these blue chip teams have not made the team. They return all 5 starters. Look, a year ago, they were left for dead after Bed Bentil and Chris Dunn were both lottery picks. Everybody said, well, once you lose lottery picks like that at a place like Providence, you can't win again. And he did it last year with no talent. This year, they return all 5 starters. Rodney Bullock's going to be a star. He's going to play in the NBA. And their 3-player freshman class was rated number 15 in the entire nation by Rivals.com. So you bring in talent to an already experienced and deep team with 3 seniors and a guy that's going to be playing on the NBA hardwood next year. At 200-1, the Providence Friars are very live.
Mr. D'Angelo.
Well, I got to change gears here.
You better throw a bomb. If you come with like Michigan State or something, I'm wheeling you out the door.
Well, I had Providence on my sheet, but where did you get 200 to 1? Because I could only see 100 to 1.
I'm going to show it to you right now because I don't like people ever
Seidel's
questioning
got
if I got it. You know how I am with futures, right?
I
I'm
know
going to
how
show
you
it
are.
to you.
I looked at 3
No,
places
I'm
and
gonna
they
show
all
it to
100 to
you.
1.
I know one place you didn't get it based on the conversation we just had during the break.
Yeah.
But I'll
Marco's such a ball buster.
yeah, I'll
And a
go
dream
on-
crusher.
I'll
I'm
go
pulling
on-
it out right now.
All right.
I'm that guy.
I'm going to go. Well, Providence was my play, but I
You
had,
had
I
another
had
play
to.
that I
I
like.
did have another play.
Double up on the Friars. Come on, Marco.
Well,
Let's
here's
go
the
for
best
it.
part. I had Minnesota written down, and somebody's going to talk about that in a second.
By the way, Marco will give it out 100 to 1 when Matt gave it out 200 to 1.
Yeah, I'm
Marco
like, yeah.
forgets about the value.
Yeah, that doesn't bode well for the value there. But I want to see where he's got it because I'm heading there after we leave here. But
Here it is. Paper ticket in hand, Providence 200 to 1.
Okay,
Westgate.
but now it's not there now.
Hey, buddy, I can't help it if after I go in, the odds change.
I'm talking about
You
what the
said
odds
it's not
are.
200 to 1. I'm showing you the
I'm
ticket.
going to tell you something,
at
Marco.
200
You
to
might
1.
disagree with what Matt plays. I don't know. I tend to hope to agree with him when he comes to college basketball, but I never challenge the guy when he says he's got the odds at a certain
Okay, yes,
price.
you do. He just showed me his ticket at 200 to 1, but it's 100 to 1 around town now. But I
Yeah,
agree
now that
with
I bet it.
But I agree with Providence. All right, I'm going to go to my third pick now since we're moving down my list.
Big baby.
Yeah, and Dave actually touched upon it. TCU.
Oh, okay.
Jamie Dixon, last year come in there, first year at TCU. Growing pains, the first year you come in as a coach, you don't have any of your players. You're taking what was left by the previous coach. And obviously it was not good because the previous coach is not there anymore, that they fired him. So Jamie Dixon has all of his starters back, 5 returning starters. And I look at this team, they're sitting at 80 to 1. And like Dave said, I'm just trying to get to the big dance. And if I get to
is that 80 to 1 you
they're
said? Okay.
80 to 1 on them. If they get to the big dance, I can do some maneuver. Actually, they might be 100 to 1 too. I think Minnesota. What did you get Minnesota at?
They're at 75 at last year.
Yeah,
but that's been a
that's the
couple
one
of
that was
days.
that was the one that was I saw 80 was the Minnesota. I think you can get TCU at 100 to 1. I like them there. I think they can get in. They're coming out of a power conference. All they got to do is finish in the upper portion of the Big 12, which I think they will this year. And Jamie Dixon, his teams play a little defense from his days at Pitt, and that's something that you play a little more physical in the Big 12. That's something that conference is not used to. I like them. I think they get to the dance, and once you're in the dance, you can do some maneuvering with hedging.
So I sent out an email. Marco, by the way, TCU. I sent out an email and I said, well, I'm going to go with Minnesota. Matt sends out, he's got 6 or 7 plays, one of them being Minnesota. So happy about that. Yeah. I sit down and do the podcast. Marco goes, I was going to use Minnesota. But I never thought I'd be the chalk player at 75 to 1. The Golden Gophers are the shortest odds of all of the teams we've talked about. I'm taking the easy way out, I guess, at 75 to 1. Listen, Richard Pitino, by the way, was a mediocre season away from getting the axe last year. Into the season with that number 5 seed in the dance. The question mark regarding
number 5 seed, by the way. I mean, they didn't just make the tournament a number 5 seed. They
that's
did
why I
lose in the
mentioned
5-12 matchup, but a number
Yeah,
5
they lost
seed.
to a good team, too.
They sure
They
did.
That was a good number. The question mark regarding the Gophers for me, guys, is, well, this is for a lot of people who say this. They didn't score real well, a lot of points on the offensive end in a consistent manner. But, guys,
That's why I like them. Don't you have to like teams that can win in other ways when they don't shoot the ball
That's what
well?
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
They're ridiculously nasty and stingy on the defensive end of the floor. They get in your shirt. They don't just have to sit back
I wonder
and
where they got
hope
that
you miss
tendency
shots.
from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let's face it. Dad didn't exactly have some. He had some brick shooting teams over the years
But boy,
that
did
went
they
a long
play
way.
D.
And by the way,
Yep.
just to throw that in, the father's kind of free to offer some advice.
We already saw one Louisville
yeah.
staple off the bench go
Go
over
to
there, the
Minnesota.
7-footer.
And you can make all the wisecracks you want about the guy's off the court shenanigans and the
Just don't
deals
want
he
him
made.
too close
but,
to the
but,
court.
But I got to tell you something.
But see,
he
this
can
is-
coach basketball.
This
Okay.
is good for Richard Pitino that it's in the family because he can have dinner with him. He doesn't have to have
Yes,
him actually
that's right.
around campus.
That's right.
But anyway, I think they're undervalued offensively because they've got guys like Nate Mason, Amir Coffey. They got Dupree McBride, Jordan Murphy, all coming back. I've actually got them guys 14th in my power ratings. 14th best college basketball team. I think they're in that 20
top
to
20.
25
Yeah, I think
range.
they're top
Where do you have
in
them
a
in the
lot
Big
of
Ten?
books. I've got them right now third in the Big Ten, but it's real close.
Obviously,
to the
Michigan
top.
State won.
I've got Michigan
Purdue,
State
too.
at the top. Exactly.
Yeah, there you
Michigan
go. Okay.
State, Purdue. You guys did your homework too, didn't you?
Yep.
So anyway, I got them 14th in my power rankings. They're 75-1. They've got the size, athleticism, depth to withstand that schedule that they got to play in the conference. Maybe they don't win the Big Ten. I don't care as long as they get to the big dance and can advance far enough to make it worth.
And
hedging.
if they just repeat last season's performance and get to a 5 seed for you at 75 to
they're gonna
1,
be paying a
better
little
than
bit more
last year.
attention. They're going to be,
I agree.
They're going to be even more focused
They
this
got all
time
5
around.
starters. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
added depth, a good freshman class.
I like this team at
Legit team.
75-1.
They brought in a good transfer. They got the Green Bay kid as a transfer.
Yep.
They're really solid.
Absolutely. And the kid from Louisville, he gets to play right away, correct? I mean, there's no...
plays
he's-
right away, and it adds more depth in the
7-footer.
paint. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, guys, good stuff in college baskets. When we come back, college football best bet. Stick around. Welcome back to WagerTalk College Football. Best bets in store. Don't forget to check out our NFL podcast. We start first with Matthew Holt. He is at Matthew Holt VP on Twitter, and you can check him out behind the counter if you happen to walk into a CGT property when he's not on the air somewhere. But he is VP of Business Development at CGT Sportsbooks in Las Vegas. Matt Holt, your best bet.
I'm going to go with the Arkansas Razorbacks plus 17 here on the road at LSU. We already talked about betting against Alabama and LSU coming off this physical rivalry game. It's even worse for the team who loses because you get so up to play this big rivalry game. And it's even worse for the team who loses when they have to play the early start next week. The crowd is not going to be there. In LSU and Baton Rouge, they're not even up at 12 noon. Never mind drunk enough and fired up enough to get in there and start cheering
Well, they
yet.
don't go to bed till 11, so...
Yeah, so I have to imagine the crowd's not going to be into it. LSU's done. There's nothing really left to play for this season. Arkansas coming in still need to get a couple wins if they're going to make it to a bowl game here. Austin Allen actually finally getting healthy from that shoulder injury. I'm going to take the 17 with the Razorbacks.
Listen, if you live in the state of Nevada, or you're coming into town for the weekend, I mean, if you didn't have the app before with CGT, what better time and what more important time to do it now with all these college basketball games, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's just so much action going on this time of year. The sports books are an absolute madhouse. Take the 5 minutes, download the app, sign up for an account, and wherever you are, the bar, the club, the pool, your hotel room, waiting for your wife to get ready before you go back downstairs to do something, wherever you're at, bet the games, where you watch the games, from the convenience of your mobile telephone. That's how people bet in 2017.
At Dave Cokin is where you find the man under the hat. Where are you going for your best bet, sir?
No place in particular. I'm going to watch the game at home.
Okay. Well, don't mind if I pop by. I'll bring a, six-pack.
Tennessee has been on my fade list all year long. Well, no, let me correct that. Not all year long, but since the end of the Florida game, which I wasn't involved in, and that's when this is a podcast, so you can just say that's when the shit started to hit the fan down there. Okay. I'm sorry.
I heard somebody trademark that.
It really? Nah. You're going to crush my dreams here. So anyways, I don't know why he's still there coaching the team. Because he's not. It's never made sense to me why you would keep a coach.
And they
who
even had that
everybody knows
bye
is-
after the Georgia game.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure after the Georgia 41-0 in a bye, he was gone, but he's still there.
He is still there, and I guess he's going to finish the season. Now, Tennessee did win a game last week, but it wasn't an impressive performance against Southern Mississippi.
Did they get outgained?
They did, although that's sometimes
Yeah,
yardage can be a
leading
little
in a
bit
game
With
you're
meaningless
winning.
turnovers,
too.
it
And
can be, I
yeah,
get it.
Southern Miss got they got a late drive where they went the length of the field where they put the other quarterback in who probably should have been out there the whole game. I would say that Tennessee returns to their ways of getting crushed here. This is still not a team that's got any particular reason to play for anything. And Missouri, all of a sudden, is a hot item. Now, Barry Odom, I mean, he sounds like he's going on the revival circuit. This guy's fired up. And, he's, hell and brimstone. What is it? Brimstone and fire, whatever. I don't know what those expressions are. But anyway, he's preaching it, whatever it is. And it's
Fire and
working.
brimstone.
And yeah, thank you. I know it was Idaho, Connecticut. Okay, who cares? And Florida's a complete cluster, you know what. But they still went out there and beat the daylights out of these teams. They're playing with tremendous enthusiasm right now in an otherwise not so meaningful game. This is where, to me, you go with the hot team, even though it's in the line already. I mean, you're not getting any value here with Missouri, and the number's going up during the course of the week. It's probably going to be, what do you figure, Matt, 13 on game day? Good chance of it?
Close, if not, yeah.
Or, at 12 anyway. I lay it with Missouri, and I made that my free play this week, and to me, it's a quality play that I'm definitely on.
What's going on Saturday and Sunday from your house where you're watching the best bet, and what do you got going at WagerTalk.com?
Well, let's see. I've hit a bunch of 5 stars in a row now, 5%, I should say. So I had 3 game of the week winners in a row. And there's a lot of good stuff going on, and I've got the early game that I posted on Sunday night. Those are 9-2 on the season. I did go 1-2 on those last week. I'd been 8-0 before that. I've got some other games up. I'll have college basketball that'll be posted. I won another hockey game tonight as we're recording this. I think
in overtime, nonetheless.
Yeah, I think by the way, I think I'm unbeaten for the season on games taking place while we record this that I'm watching on my phone.
That's why Dave's stretching this out right now. He wants a 4-hour podcast.
Well, I want to see if we can extend this through the North Carolina-Pittsburgh game because I've got Carolina plus 9.5, and they couldn't stop Seidel right now. Anyway,
that's a shot.
Just go to the website and buy what I've got up there, and chances are you're going to make money on it, okay?
Marco, your best. But by the way, you can follow Marco at Marco in Vegas.
All right, guys, I'm going to head to a game, Duke and Army. And you look at, on paper, if you look at this, you're going to say, well, Army's the team to take here. They're rolling 5 straight wins. And you look at Duke, they've lost 5 straight. But that's not the way I'm going to go. You look at Army, last week they played Air Force. And going into that game, they were already bowl eligible. They already accepted their bowl bid. Where they're going to be going, but that was playing Army last week. So they were up for that game. They like to, obviously win the games against the other academies. Now, off of that, what do they have to play for this week? Mm-hmm. And you look at a Duke team, we always talk about it's hard to prepare for the option teams. Well, Duke had the week off. So they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this Army option, and that's all Army does. And they do it well, don't get me wrong, but they've had 2 weeks to prepare for it. Not only the 2 weeks to prepare for it, but they've played Army each of the last 2 years, so they're familiar with it. Plus the fact they face Georgia Tech every year in the ACC. And who do they have up after Army? They've got Georgia Tech. So they were totally focused for the last 2 weeks on preparing for the option in back-to-back weeks. I'm going to take Duke in this one. They need 2 wins to become bowl eligible. This one gets them to 500 at 5-5. They need to get this one with what their schedule finishes up with so that they could split against Georgia Tech and Wake Forest and to go bowling. We're going to take Duke and lay the points.
And what do you got going this week at Wager Talk?
Well, we put up a special this week. I am going to have a 5% on Saturday, and we've hit back-to-back Saturdays with our 5% plays. Had a big one last week with Virginia, and I have another one going on Saturday. We have a package. I'm calling it my Ring in the New Year package. If you pick up my package, a month at Wager Talk is $325. You can get the rest of the season of my plays, all of my plays through December 31st for $325. That is basically buying December and getting the rest of November free. Check it out at WagerTalk.com.
Good stuff. I'm going to throw a couple of numbers out there. We're 65% in college football this year at WagerTalk.com, 35-19. 91-57, 61% since the start of last year. And we hit another 3-pack, and it reminded me of it when you said Virginia, because that was one of my 3 plays. We're now 38-14-2 with our plays inside those 3-packs. And we'll have another one going for Saturday's college football. But it's been kind of a case of you play, you win, as far as what we've been doing over at Wager Talk at college football and college basketball, for that matter, over the last couple of seasons. So be sure to check out the entire card at my page at WagerTalk.com. Now, my free play is posted right now at WagerTalk.com, or my best bet is a free play there. I'm going to give it out here as a best bet, and I'm going to go on the Minnesota Golden Gophers football. So a little basketball with the future, football this weekend because, well, they're hosting Nebraska. And let me say this. I'm going to make it nice, sweet.
Hosting Nebraska, enough said.
Nice, short and sweet here. I've gone against Nebraska 6 times this year, gone 5-1 against the spread. That's going against them whether premium or free. I'm going to give you the reasons I'm on Minnesota. If you want to see the long version, you just go to WagerTalk.com. You can check it out. Here's the reason. P.J. Fleck, Mike Riley, Nebraska can't run. Tanner Lee plays quarterback for the Huskers. Enough said. I'm on Minnesota. I know some people are saying, oh, this is the spot where Nebraska wins on the road. Well, they squeaked by and should have lost to Purdue a couple of weeks ago. That was my one loss going against Nebraska
Braun blew
this year.
that game, too.
Braun blew it. He got conservative. It was a bad coaching job in the fourth quarter. I'll take Minnesota this week over the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Hey, thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the College Football Podcast. Don't forget to check out the NFL podcast this week, and it's up right now. Also, you know the drill. Have a great weekend. Put them in the win column. We'll see you next week.
And I bid you good night. Good night. Good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.